Hi, this is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman, and our guest today is best-selling author and psychotherapist Thomas Moore. Thomas has written numerous books on spirituality, including Writing in the Sand, Soulmates, Life at Work, and the New York Times bestseller, Care of the Soul. Tom, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here today.
Well, thanks very much, Joan.
Tom, I'd like to begin talking about one's life path. You wrote about obedience to one's calling, and you believe that it's okay for us to make changes throughout our lives. Your journey began with a calling to the priesthood. You've since worked as a musician, a university professor, a psychotherapist, writer, and a speaker. How do we know what we're called to do? Recently, I did an interview with Gay Hendricks, who suggests that it's in our zone of genius, where we do what we love and we would do the work for free just because we love it. Is that a vocation calling?
I think it's one side. When you're not fighting yourself in the work you do, I think that's part of it. But I think there's something else, because I distinguish a job and work from a life work. It seems to me there's something that we're called to do throughout our life, but it does change. I think for most people, you'd find something that's constant at a deep level as you go. I mean, I started out, it's true, thinking I'd become a Catholic priest. And I gave that up, and it was quite a big thing to leave that behind. On the other hand, right now, I still am invited to speak in churches. I'm not a priest, but I still stand in pulpits and talk about the soul and spirit. So, I mean, it's the same work in a way, but the externals are very different from what I anticipated those many years ago.
Is it okay for us to make these types of changes in our life?
Well, I think you have to. If you don't, you get stuck in one place, and you might feel depressed, or you might feel that, things just aren't working, because life, one thing about life, it seems to me, is that it keeps moving on. It's like a river, they say. It just keeps flowing. And if you don't keep moving, I think that's when you end up with trouble. I mean, you can be at the same job for many years, but unless it's a living job and things do change and life is moving along, I think that probably you'd feel pretty frustrated at it.
And it's when we stop growing and evolving as human beings.
Yeah, so it's like an evolution. We're always unfolding. I like that word sometimes. We're always unfolding. And that's something that is not always easy, because, it's nice to be in a place where you feel comfortable and secure, and then the opportunity comes along to move on. In my own life, I was fired from a couple positions, and it seemed terrible at the time. I didn't know what was going to happen next. But when I look back on it, I realized that this so-called bad experience really moved me along.
So it's true what they say, when one door closes, another one does open up for us.
I think it does happen. You have to look at what's happening in your life and see how you need to adjust. I think these are challenges. I don't want to make this sound too easy. When those opportunities come along, they may not look like opportunities, and there may be some struggle and a strong feeling of loss and confusion. And so the point is to be able to know yourself at a deep level, to see what your heart wants at that depth.
We so often hear the phrase mind, body, and spirit. However, you believe that the soul is missing in that statement. And how does your approach differ, and what is the difference between the spirit and the soul?
Well, that's a really huge topic, but they are different. And I'm just following very old traditions going back thousands of years that say this. This idea of mind, body, spirit is very recent. The soul is that part of us that's very deep. That's the word usually used for centuries. So our depth of feeling, the deep thoughts we have, deep experiences, deep relationships, being attached to your home, to the region where you live, to your work, even to objects like to a machine or to your car. These are all aspects of the soul. Falling in love, that's part of it. The spirit, on the other hand, is not so deep down. It's more that thing, that part of us that makes us move ahead and move into the future and have ideals and kind of get off the earth and have a cosmic sense. So religions are often focusing on spirit. They like to talk about afterlife and the creation of the world and the huge big picture. So that's the spirit realm, and the soul is a small picture. It's the picture of your own daily life and your relationships.
And you talk about a person being comprised of the spirit, the soul, the body, and the world. What are the other two elements, the body and the world? What do they mean?
Well, the body just means either the physical body or just living in a physical world, the body of the world. We don't want to overlook the fact that we're not just a soul and not just a spirit, but we are also a body. and our bodies get sick, and our bodies need attention, and we have to eat, and body is very important. So the body is part of us, although it's related to the soul and spirit. So I don't want to separate those two. So in my recent work in medicine, I've been trying to talk to doctors and nurses especially about never treating the human body as though it were not a person. A body is always part of the total person. So that's an important connection, I think, to make. When I add the word world because as I've been visiting hospitals with my work recently, I've been talking to people who are in hospitals, and I realize that part of what defines them is their world. That means the work they do, the place where they live, the way they normally carry on their activities. When they go to a hospital, that world is taken away from them in a way. It's not theirs anymore, and they really feel the absence of it.
The work that you're referring to is your new book, Care of the Soul in Medicine, and we are going to talk about that book a little bit later on. Tom, what does it mean for us to care for our soul?
Well, it's the soul is, as I said, is this very delicate, deep part of ourselves. Someone recently wrote to me, said they read Care of the Soul, and they said it meant so much to them to realize that they have a soul, that they're a person who is individual, unique, and has some depth and has delicate feelings and has a lot of thoughts that are important, and relationships and memories. So all of that material together is the soul. Now, caring for that means to give attention to our home to start with. I think home is a very important part of the life of the soul. So you take care of your home, however big or small it is. You give it some attention. You make it comfortable. You allow it to give you a sense of security and comfort, a place to go when you're out there in the world, to come back to, a place to have your friends over. And there's a long tradition that caring for the soul also involves giving attention to your friends. Friendship is a very important part of the life of the soul. So you can go on and on talking about these things that are part of the soul life that can be neglected because we get so wrapped up in making money or moving into the future or concentrating on things that aren't so interior and so delicate.
So the soul, in essence, is really just the deep part of who we are, what makes us who we are. Is that correct?
Yes. In fact, Aristotle said that. One of the philosophers, he said that the soul of an axe, that's the example he gave, the soul of an axe is what makes it an axe. So the soul of a person is what makes that person who he or she is.
And that's the part that we seem to forget.
Yes, we forget it. Well, the culture around us doesn't give much attention to the soul anymore. I mean, we were talking a few minutes ago. Everyone's talking about mind, body, spirit. They don't realize they've left out maybe the most important ingredient of all. So we just ignore it. I think we take it for granted and don't realize that it requires constant care.
Now, Tom, referring to the statement, a soulful life is never without shadow, and some of the soul's power comes from its shadow qualities. How do the shadows of life, the trials, the challenges, how does that help our soul?
Oh, in lots of ways. Let's say you're going along smoothly and nothing is wrong. You can get quite unconscious in that state, and years can go by and nothing seems to happen, and you don't move anywhere as a person. But as soon as as trouble comes along, a conflict or something you have to deal with, a challenge, let's say you do lose a job or you get sick or something of that sort, well, then suddenly you got to look and say, well, who am I and what's this all about and what's important to me? These bad times can be very useful. I don't mean to say that we should look for them and hope that we have bad times, not at all. But you can see that in almost every life there is some challenge and difficulty, and they certainly have a place.
Well, I would think that, A, they teach us who we are, as you said, and they help us to grow, and B, they also help us to appreciate when the good times do come into our lives.
Well, they certainly do. If we didn't have those difficulties, losses, and those things I mentioned, then everything, I think, would be flat. We wouldn't have anything to compare to. We would just take life for granted, and we don't do that when we've had to deal with some difficult times.
Now, Tom, we may have many listeners who are going through some sort of a personal transformation, and they may feel like they're just coming to life for the first time. How can these people really awaken themselves and push further and further? What type of nourishment do they need to accomplish this?
Well, they can use a lot of things if they're waking up. I meet a lot of people like that who said they've lived unconsciously for a long time, and suddenly they realize that they want to really live, and time is passing by, and they want to make something of their lives. And they don't know exactly what to do next. I think one thing they do very frequently is take a look at the work they're doing. I mean, the job. What kind of work it is. Is it work that satisfies them? Are they just going through the motions? Are they just working for a paycheck? And a lot of people, when they begin to wake up, actually move into a different line of work, which is kind of interesting. Some people, of course, it's even more difficult because it becomes a challenge to their family or to their marriage. Because in marriage, it's often the case that one person begins to wake up and the other one doesn't. In fact, I met a man not long ago who was a minister, and he began to wake up in a way and realize that his ideas about religion were quite old-fashioned and rather sleepy. He hadn't really thought about things in a long time. He started to wake up and then realized that his entire family would reject him and ostracize him if they knew what he was thinking. So it's a challenge sometimes when you wake up. It helps to have, to get a little education about things, to do some reading and attend some workshops or lectures, that kind of thing, to get some help. Some people, it really helps to go into therapy. And of course, that's what I do therapy with people. And I can, I see them waking up and help guide them through it. So those things can be done. And then the other thing that I always go back to is that if you can rely on a few close friends so you can talk about what's going on openly and know that you're going to get some support, that's also a very important part of it.
Well, and you've also said to trust in life and trust in yourself. So if we apply what you've just advised, we should be able to get rid of the fear and the self-doubt.
Yes, we should be able to do that. I think it does take a lot of trust. And if you can trust yourself and trust life in general, and notice nature helps a great deal, to notice how nature works, how it, you go through winter and then springtime comes along and you see the rhythms of nature and you realize that you're part of nature. That can be supportive. And just going out into nature can be useful to get away from things and to be inspired and to be supported by the natural world.
Tom, do you think as human beings that on some level we're afraid to find inner peace?
Oh, yes. My feeling as a psychotherapist is that most people that come to me who are in trouble are not afraid of dying. They're not afraid of death. They're afraid of living. They're really afraid of life because maybe so far they've been able to keep it rather, under a lid and not too challenging. But they realize sometimes people wake up and they realize that if they really want to live, they have to change, make some big changes in life, and take it on and really become a more active person and get involved in the world. So yes, I think that that there is the feeling that to be alive is too difficult, and that's something people have to get over.
Tom, we're going to take a short break for our sponsors. This is Joan Herman. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life now has a monthly free digital magazine that can be mailed to your inbox or read online at cyacyl.com. Each month, nationally recognized leaders in their fields, such as Joel Osteen, Shaun T., Tanya Brown, Ed and Deb Shapiro, Food Network's Robert Irvine, plus many others, provide the tools that you need to inspire and motivate you. We believe in a holistic approach to life, incorporating mind, body, and spirit. As philosopher Francis Bacon said, knowledge is power. Take the wisdom provided in the publication and apply it to your everyday life. Visit cyacyl.com for more information or to begin your free subscription. That's cyacyl.com. Welcome back to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman, and our guest today is best-selling author and psychotherapist Thomas Moore. Thomas has written numerous books on spirituality, including Writing in the Sand, Soulmates, Life at Work, and the New York Times bestseller, Care of the Soul. His newest book is called Care of the Soul in Medicine. Tom, I want to touch very briefly on a quote that you had said about religion. And just so you know, from my frame of reference, I'm a Catholic, and I'm not approaching this from any particular religious standpoint. I'm only mentioning Catholicism because it's my frame of reference. Our listeners can insert whatever their belief structure, into this discussion. But you've said that religion is not an institution. I still like the word and the idea of religion. To me, it is a quality of life in which you stand at the edge of your existence and remain open in mind and heart to the unknown all around you. I think that that's what it's all about. But what I want to ask you is, how can people like me and like so many of us who have been raised with a particular way of thinking open up our minds and be receptive to the unknown around us?
I think what you have to do is realize that as a human being that maybe you don't have as many answers to your questions as you thought you did when you were a child. I think many people have to grow up. A lot of times their religious ideas and spiritual ideas come from their childhood, and they haven't matured at the same level as other areas of life had. So when you do that, then I think it's a bit challenging and sometimes frightening. You have to then ask. You begin to ask some very difficult questions, like, like what's the meaning of my life, and how should I be? What should I do? And what's going to happen to me? And what about my children? How should I raise my children? Can I be a good person and not be religious in the way my parents were? All these kinds of questions come to us as we get older and mature, and we have to face a lot of unknowns. I think especially this is true, and I see it when people either get very sick and have to really face things they never thought of before, or when someone close to them gets ill or dies. In those moments especially, these very big questions just come down on us, and a lot of people retreat right into the things they were taught as a child. But I think that those of us who realize we have to be adult, we have to face these things that are mysterious. My position is, and I've studied so many religious traditions. My position is that to be religious means you're not satisfied with easy answers to these questions. That you have to face the fact there are some things about life, human life, that are very mysterious that will never be answered. But you have to have some way of living comfortably with those things, of feeling okay about yourself and feeling secure, even though there's no one there to give you some answers that will satisfy you momentarily. So I actually think myself, I feel fully convinced that once you begin as an adult to understand how mysterious life is, you find another level of security because your questions are open and you're just taking life as it is presented to you, and you're not substituting any kind of easy answers.
You also talk about something which people tend to just believe is for children, but you say that imagination in life is everything, and that it's actually the most important power we have. I like to believe that I'm a pretty imaginative, creative person, but sometimes I'm written off as just being a dreamer who isn't practical. So how can we let go of this societal perception to give us this power?
Well, one way I have found with that is just to look at the lives of people I admire. So many artists and writers and thinkers have been very imaginative and intuitive. And when you study their lives, you see that they had to be faithful to their vision throughout their life, that they were criticized, they were misunderstood, they were rejected in so many different ways. I mean, that's almost the typical story of some of the greatest people that have lived. So to me, at least, that gives me some support. I realize that being in this world and being an imaginative person and never being satisfied with all these pat answers you get all over the place, that is challenging, but it makes you feel like you're alive, and you know that you're living your own life and not somebody else's life. That's also a very important part of it.
I want to touch upon your new book, Care of the Soul in Medicine. In this publication, you focus and you explore the current medical culture and the focus on treatment and cure at the expense of caring and healing. What do you believe is lacking in our healthcare system today?
Well, what is lacking is the human element, the human dimension. Most of our healthcare, when you think about it, is focused, of course, in the newspapers on money, and a lot of people will say that, doctors and nurses, that the style of their care depends so much on insurance companies and who's being paid what. That's a very important part of it. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that medicine has pretty much been taken over by a technological, mechanistic view of the human being. So when we talk about medicine today, we're thinking of the newest machinery that we have and the drugs. We don't really talk much about a person who has, let's say a doctor who has great intuition about how to heal or can really have quick insight into what a person is going through and relate their sickness to the way they're living and that sort of thing. We don't do that. So I think we've lost the human dimension in medicine, and to lose that is to lose a very big chunk of what's important.
What would healthcare look like if the ideas in your book were put into practice?
Well, it wouldn't look too much different. I think, it would look different. It wouldn't look, what I mean to say is that we still would have our technology. I'm not saying that our technological aspects of medicine are not good. They are. They're wonderful. Mm-hmm. I'm alive, I know, because of them, and I know many, many people are. So it's a wonderful thing where we've come with technology. But we have isolated technology. We've cut it away from the human issues. So I would say, let's say, very concretely, if medicine took my lessons, you go to a hospital, it would be a very different kind of place. You'd feel right away when you walked into it that this was a place where you could heal. And it wouldn't be one where you smell chemicals, you would smell flowers. Mm-hmm. You would feel okay, you would feel relaxed about it. You wouldn't feel the anxiety of entering this kind of machine kind of place. And you would find people who are able to talk to you and to help you because they're really healers. And today an awful lot of doctors especially find it difficult really being close to patients because they feel they should be distant and just essentially be technicians. And I think that's hurting doctors as well as patients.
And they're forgetting about the part of healing that is just as important as the physical aspect.
Yes, exactly. I think most doctors will say that, they do their best, and they certainly came into medicine wanting to be a whole person, treating whole persons. But they get so involved in the technology of it that they lose sight of the human side.
Tom, if our listeners would like to get more information about your work, what website can they visit?
Careofthesoul.net has everything on it that I'm doing right now.
So if you'd like more information about Thomas Moore, you can visit careofthesoul.net. And as always, you can visit our website, which is cyacyl.com, which stands for Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. While on our website, please check out our new digital magazine, listen to past shows as podcasts, sign up for our mailing list, and follow the show on Facebook. Tom, it has been a pleasure having you here. Our guest was Thomas Moore. Thomas is a best-selling author and psychotherapist. He's written numerous books on spirituality, including Writing in the Sand, Soulmates, Life at Work, the New York Times bestseller Care of the Soul, and two of his newest publications are called Care of the Soul in Medicine and The Guru of Golf. Tom, thank you so much for being here. I think that your work gives us a lot of food for thought, and I wish you a lot of success with your new books.
Thank you, Joan. I enjoyed it very much.
This is Joan Herman, and this is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Thanks for tuning in.